Let's get into some Dodgers talk out of Camelback Ranch because Dave Roberts might have tipped his hand when it comes to that opening day 26-man roster, and maybe he listens to the All Dodgers podcast because this was a name that I was saying. But asked today, I mean, he wasn't generally like directly asked about any one particular player. It was more so about how do you fit all the pieces of all of this talent together, which is in and of itself a very difficult conversation and a very tough puzzle that this organization needs to figure out over the next about 3.5-4 weeks or so and beyond. But again, he might have tipped his hand a little bit at which position player could be the odd man out on opening day, because when asked about, again, all of the names that are there in that clubhouse, he kind of singled out, in a way, two names, Andy Pages and James Outman. And James Outman, not at all a surprise. Not at all a surprise with that one. But the quote was, "My job is to make our guys stay on board with being ready when called upon, and knowing most important thing for this club is us winning baseball games." So if everybody's buying in, if everybody is understanding that maybe you need to take one at bat in the first half of the season and 250 in the second half, or you don't take any at bats, or you show up and fill a roster spot for one day, whatever it is that helps this team ultimately get back, to the World Series and ultimately win a second championship in a row. That's the goal. And if that means somebody like Andy Pages, who was pretty important on this Dodgers roster down the stretch and into the postseason, if he doesn't get playing time, if he doesn't get a roster spot, that's tough. But he's got to be ready. What do you think about this? And am I reading? Is my doc radar going the right way with that?
Yes and no. I think part of it is these are two guys that have options still. So I think he singled them out because they're the two easiest to maneuver. And, as of right now, Pages profiles best as a platoon bat, despite him still being young enough to, he could develop out of it. I don't think we should necessarily shoehorn him into that role. But, as it stands right now, that's where he's at. I just think part of it is he knows that there's a real roster crunch, and the easiest guys to move are going to be Outman, Pages, and in my opinion, Hyeseong Kim. Those are my pick, and I think those are the three guys that are really going to be battling it out for that final position or that final roster spot.
Yeah, at least on the position player side of things, pitching side is also going to be an interesting conversation. That's a whole other can of worms. There's really one player, I guess you could say kind of two, or wait, maybe four players vying for two spots on the opening day roster. If you really want to expand it, but Kike is going to be on that roster. Chris Taylor isn't going anywhere in the amount of time they have left, this spring and all that kind of stuff. They're not going to find a deal. They signed Hyeseong Kim for a reason, and like we said a couple of weeks ago, if he finds a way to play himself off of the opening day roster, then Pages probably gets the nod, and ultimately it's kind of not going to matter what happens with that final roster spot. They're going to get a very minimal amount of playing time, like we saw with Chris Taylor last season, at least especially in the second half. But these are the type of questions we have to kind of I guess soldier through when you're talking about the Dodgers and the sheer amount of talent. I still say it will be Andy Pages, though, because he has options and they want him to play every day. He could be a right fielder or center fielder of the future for this team. I'm going to tell you guys about BetOnline. That's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all things online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. They have the largest selection of odds. They have all those odds on the NBA, the college basketball, the hands are flying, NHL, UFC, all that kind of stuff. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source, again, in 2025. From every three-pointer to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more from every game, every play, every win. That's right, BetOnline. The game starts here. An ace of the future for this team, Roki Sasaki, got off a mound again for the second time since the start of spring training through a second bullpen session. And Dave Roberts telling my buddy D-Mac some things about Roki. He liked what he sees. Cleaned up some things between the bullpen sessions after that first one. Dave said, he was a little bit erratic. We didn't get firsthand look at it, but we don't get that kind of privilege. Secondhand look though, it looked a lot better. Some of the video we did see out of Camelback Ranch, Dave said more clean and consistent, and Dave kind of attributed it to nerves in his first go round. On I guess you could say kind of a major league mound, even if it is just spring training. You got to figure, man, the nerves that kid had to have going through him after being the biggest headline of the entire offseason. Yeah, I'm writing off that first bullpen session myself.
Yeah, as Cube say, big fish in a small pond. Not anymore. He's just another one of the guys. Yeah, it's not only is he having to deal with the massive amount of media that he wouldn't have to deal with potentially in another organization. There's a lot of expectations. It's also literally a different baseball. There's just a lot for him to get used to all at once. He's stateside now. There's a lot, and it's completely reasonable that he just couldn't, or he's just taking a little bit of time to adjust. I don't think anybody would fault him. Write it off. He'll be just fine. Even back to his playing days in NPB, control was never his, his calling card. It was just the stuff is nasty. Yoshinobu's control is much more his calling card. So, if I hear that Roki Sasaki's erratic, I kind of shrug it off. If you hear Yoshinobu's erratic, then you kind of start worrying that something's a little wrong. As my dog licks my foot.
I think that means your dog is excited for spring training. Dave also mentioned Yoshi kind of being being ahead of where he was at this point a year ago, which tells me he's in a better spot. The nerves are a little bit more calmed down and all that kind of stuff. So where we're at talent-wise and where these pitchers are building up. I mean, the good thing for somebody like Roki, he has Shohei Ohtani he can lean on, and Shohei has enough going on in his rehab and his return from injuries. And then the same with Yamamoto. That's somebody, Yama he can lean on, just did it a year ago, did it with a lot of the same sort of fanfare that came with, or that's coming with Sasaki now. Just tune out the noise, have fun, get to know your teammates. And I imagine it being a lot more difficult, on the pitching side of things, because at least somebody like Hyeseong Kim, with Kim, he is a position player. He gets to hang with the boys. They get to have some fun out there on the field and that kind of stuff. So it's got to be a little bit more difficult on the starting pitching side to get better and get acclimated and kind of feel the vibes that comes as the season goes along. Quickly, because I don't want to leave Tim waiting for too long, we do have a Hyeseong Kim update. As we expected, he is going to get a little bit of runway this spring training. As you noted, Kevin, the biggest concern you could argue is the ability or the potential ability to handle velocity. Pitchers throw a lot harder. Breaking news in Major League Baseball, but did get a glowing review from Aaron Bates. If you want to kind of share some thoughts from Beatty there real quick, let the people know what Aaron Bates had to say.
Yeah, Bates, the Dodgers hitting coach, or one of them, says he has bat-to-ball skills, which is something that can't really be taught. He has the ingredients to be great. It's just kind of fine-tuning things. Obviously, he was a great player in Korea and has all the components, so it's just kind of making some tweaks here and there, all the while letting him play and play free mentally and put his best foot forward. Agreed. He makes a really good point. Having a bat-to-ball skill, not having a gaping hole in your swing, is kind of the first hurdle. So he's at least got that, and he's going to have to get to a point where when he gets into the box, he's out of his own head. He can just sit there and just approach every at-bat pretty much the same way. I think a good person, and I'm not saying Hyeseong Kim will ever necessarily be this, but it's Freddie. Freddie, he knows, hey, I'm a lane hitter. I'm doing this. I'm looking for these exact things in every at-bat. Hyeseong Kim's going to have to get there with his mechanics and just getting used to the pitching. So I'm excited to see. He's like I said, he's my guy, my position player to watch for this spring, just to see, can he look comfortable?
Dave, I like what Dave said. The glove plays now. The bat's going to be a little bit of a work in progress. Of course, the Dodgers, they have the talent, they have the people in the front office to be able to help this dude out. And if he's somebody that works out, hell yeah. If he doesn't work out, Dodgers are still in a very good spot with the amount of talent they have laying around in wait.